I would like to give out a warning before you watch this episode. There is some subject matter in this episode that some people may not find suitable. So please, I would advise viewer discretion. Also, the subject that we are talking about today in this episode is not meant to encourage anybody to go out and somehow summon or conjure up these beings to communicate with them. With that being said, enjoy the episode.
Let's get inside this random cat and dogs out here.
Yeah. What did you think of the movie?
It was okay.
What was wrong with it?
The acting,
You just don't appreciate art.
sure, yeah, that's what it was.
Did you like anything?
The food was great.
Right. Okay, next time you get to pick the movie, alright?
Okey-doke, I'm fine with that.
Alright, well, if you do the dishes, I'm gonna go watch TV for a bit.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Hello? Who are you?
Did you finish the dishes? Hello, are you gonna talk?
Everything that you've just witnessed was inspired by true events. There's been a strange, eerie, and downright sinister phenomenon that has been sweeping across the world and all throughout time. There are these beings that are visiting people at night while they're trying to sleep. They've also been seen during the day. And sometimes they've even been known to follow people through their entire lives. Now, nobody knows what these beings are, what their purpose is, or even what they want. And that's what we're going to be talking about today in this episode. We're going to try to find out what they are with the facts on hand and maybe try to figure out what are the shadow people. Shadow people have been visiting, plaguing, and sometimes in certain cases even watching over our world a lot longer than people may realize. Stories of certain beings have been reported as far back as ancient Greece. Now, from then until now, nobody still does not know what they are or what they want. But before we get into what they are and some of the stories that surround the shadow people, let's talk about what a shadow person is first. Shadow people are often described as a solid black mass that looks like a shadow that can take on the shape of a man. The height of these beings range from person to person, but they are normally slim and over 6 feet tall. They do not possess any distinct characteristics like eyes, ears, or mouths, but people are able to tell that they are male from their shape. Shadow people are not found in a specific location per se. It's more like the shadow person decides when and where it's going to appear. Now, a very common experience with a shadow person or unexplained black mass is when a person is walking and all of a sudden they see a black mass go quickly past them in their peripheral vision. Now, I'm sure a lot of people that are watching have experienced this. I myself have experienced catching a glimpse of something you can't explain in the corner of your eye. Another common example of shadow people is they seem to appear a lot when people are trying to sleep or while they are sleeping. People report seeing black masses that are in the shape of a male that are standing in the corner of their bedroom or at the foot of their bed when they're trying to sleep. Now, why could they be appearing in the bedroom? Well, if they are trying to intimidate or scare somebody, someone's bedroom is seen as the ultimate space of privacy. It's where you feel you're most comfortable. So, if something was trying to scare or intimidate somebody, invading their bedroom where they feel most comfortable would be the perfect place to do it. Now, a lot of people, when they see these beings in their rooms and they're getting ready to sleep or they've been awoken by them, they seem to feel almost paralyzed, like they can't move or breathe or even scream for help. And some people have explained the shadow person phenomenon away because of these certain symptoms with something that is referred to as sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is when someone is conscious while they are dreaming. What this means is the person did not go through the normal process of sleeping and has now become awake and asleep at the same time, which can result in a waking dream. Normally a person awakes and is paralyzed and feels a heaviness on their chest and begins seeing their dreams happen right before their eyes in real life. It is a truly terrifying experience. Now, some accounts and experiences with the shadow people could be explained away with sleep paralysis. But what about the people that see these beings right before they fall asleep? And they see these beings in their room and they're not asleep, so sleep paralysis cannot be happening. Also, if they are experiencing sleep paralysis, then how is it that so many people are experiencing the same black shadow-like beings attacking them in the same waking dream? To me, that just seems a little odd. Now, some people don't think that shadow people are these evil and horrible beings that everybody makes them out to be. Some people think that they might just be wandering spirits, or that they might be just beings that are misunderstood and they're just watching over us. However, there are some people that have experienced the terror and the evil that some of these beings bring. Now, during my research, there were some people that were kind enough to share their experiences and stories with these beings with me and gave me permission to use them on the show. And one of these people was a woman by the name of Michelle. Now, the story goes is that her and her husband and their 10-year-old son moved into their new home. And on the day of them moving in, when they were unpacking, Michelle saw a shadow-like being standing in her home. Now, she explained it away and maybe her mind was playing tricks on her. But there were other times where she would see the shadow being sitting on the stairs leading up to the second floor of their house. He would also be responsible for turning lights on and off in the house, opening and slamming doors. And on one occurrence, the shadow being was seen walking into their 10-year-old's bedroom and slammed the door behind him. And the child was horrified. Now, fortunately, the child was not harmed in this experience, but that was the final straw, and they moved out 3 weeks after moving in. Now, more people have moved into the house, and they have moved out in a very hurried fashion, just like they did. Now, when people do see shadow people and they see them in their evil form, what normally happens is the shadow person will either lunge at the person and begin choking them, holding them down on the bed or wherever they are, and choking them to where they feel paralyzed and they can't do anything to help themselves. People have also been scratched by these beings and even pushed. Now, when people normally see a shadow person, they normally see the normal description of what one is. It's just a slim build, it appears like a male, and it's around 6 feet tall. But in my research, I found that there are a couple different forms of shadow beings that seem to be reoccurring in people's experiences. Now, I was able to find 5 different shadow beings, and here they are. These are the typical shadow people I was just speaking about. They are the solid black mass that appears to be male with no distinct characteristics and is around 6 feet tall. I have heard these forms referred to as slim shadows. These beings are the exact same as the slim shadows, except for their piercing red evil eyes. These beings are associated more with fear and seem to be the ones that are more prone to attack someone. Now this one I found interesting. There have been sightings of a shadow person that appears like an English gentleman. People can see that he is wearing a top hat, overcoat, and pocket watch, all still solid black like he is. No one knows who he is, but he tends to wander more than anything else, and is not harmful. These shadows are described as being dressed in a hooded robe or cloak, and seem to watch people and not become involved with them. People tend to become uneasy around these shadows. This is the most infamous shadow person to date. People describe him as wearing a wide-brimmed hat and a long trench coat, all black like he is. They call him the Hat Man, and he has been seen numerous times all over the world. He too watches people, but he has been reported to communicate with people by either tipping his hat or actually speaking to the person. If he did speak to them, then this may be the first communication with a shadow person ever. Now to talk about what the shadow people could be. Now some people think that they might be wandering spirits that are disguising themselves as shadows to scare people into intimidating them or getting some kind of reaction out of them. Now in Greek mythology they did have a term for a spirit, and it was called a shade. Now they described these spirits as like shadow beings walking around and wandering the earth. Now the way someone became a shade was when they died and they descended into the underworld. The ferryman Charon would take their soul into Hades, where they would be judged depending on what level of Hades they would go to. Now if the spirit got to Charon and did not have the money to pay the fare, they were not allowed entrance into Hades, which they were doomed to wander the earth until they were able to come up with their payment. Also, in ancient Egyptian mythology, if one was not given a proper burial, or if their body was not prepared properly for death, then they believed that their ghost would wander the earth as well, and they described it as being shadow-like. Now, some people think that the shadow people could be a form of interdimensional being, meaning that they are from another dimension that they refer to as the shadow world. Now, some people think that the shadow world is on a 4-dimensional plane, whereas ours is on a 3-dimensional plane, and our brain makes sense of these beings when they enter our dimension as a shadow, because that is how we perceive their 4-dimensional properties. But there might be something to the shadow people phenomenon that is something else altogether. And it might be something that has been around since man first took his steps on this planet. Now, a lot of sightings of shadow people seem to do or deal with death. These beings have been seen in cemeteries, and they have been seen right before people are about to die, or people that are very sick. Another story that I came across was from a woman named Jane. She told me that she saw 3 to 4 shadow beings that were standing behind her grandmother's chair with her grandma sitting there. Now her grandma was sick, and then a week later her grandmother died. Now, is this a coincidence, or were the shadow people maybe foreshadowing what was going to happen? This occurrence is not the first of its kind. A lot of people have seen the shadow people right before relatives or friends die. And our ancestors might have actually had an explanation for what these shadow beings may be. The Cherokee Indians believed in a version of death they called the Raven Mocker. This was a being that would take on the form of a raven and fly to the sickly or dying and take their soul to the afterlife. It would sometimes appear as an old man or woman and sometimes even as a shadow being. As I mentioned earlier, Karen was the ferryman who brought departed souls from the world of the living and shipped them into the land of the dead, the Greeks referred to as Hades, after the ruler of the underworld himself. And then, of course, we have the commonly known version of death, the Grim Reaper, typically depicted as a skeleton in a long hooded robe carrying around a scythe or sickle, which he uses to reap the souls of the dying. This version of death was adopted during the Dark Ages in Europe during the plague outbreak, and some of the hooded shadow people resemble the modern-day Grim Reaper. One thing that I found in my research that the shadow beings could be the fallen angels of heaven. Now, there were a lot of books that did not make it into the final copy of the Bible, and one of these books was the Book of Enoch. Now, Enoch writes about a special group of angels that was chosen by God to come down to earth and watch over all of mankind. And these angels were referred to as the Watchers. Now, what happened is when the Watchers came to earth, they saw the women that inhabited earth and they started to lust after these women. And they eventually started having sexual intercourse with them, which produced a horrid and ugly child that was referred to as a Nephilim, which was a giant. Now, after that, there were so many Nephilim in the world that God had to flood the earth to rid them of the earth. And after this, the Watchers became fallen angels. They were not welcome into the kingdom of heaven after this. And if they were to be fallen angels, they would not appear majestic or bringers of light like you would think. They would appear as something maybe eerie and dark and evil looking, like a shadow. Another reason I decided to include the Watchers theory is because a lot of the stories surrounding the shadow people, they seem to almost watch the people or observe them and sometimes not even get involved at all. And to me, it made me think of the Watchers, that they might still be performing their duties before they were cast from heaven. Also, a lot of the experiences that people have with shadow people, it tends to happen more to women than it does to men. Again, coming back to the Watchers who fell in love with the women of earth. Now, there was something else that I came across in my research that piqued my interest. A lot of people claim that they could see shadow people when they were small children, and that this shadow person would follow them for a good portion of their childhood until they became around 16, 17, even sometimes as young as 15. Now, there was another story that a woman was so kindly enough to share with me. Her name was Samantha, and she told me that when she was a young girl, she would see a shadow man in the corner of her room. Now, she would see this person all throughout the day and night at different times. And he followed her for a good portion of her life. She even told me that her friends even saw the shadow man on a couple different occasions. Now, the question still remains, what are the shadow people? And what is their purpose, or what do they want from us? Are they wandering spirits that are disguising themselves as shadows to either intimidate or scare us? Or are they spirits that are simply just trapped here because they were not given the proper rites before they passed away in order for them to get to the afterlife? Are they bringers of death? Or do they bring death upon us like a Grim Reaper figure? And do they come to guide our soul to the afterlife? Or are they interdimensional beings like some people think they are, and they come from a shadow world, and that's just how we perceive them because they're from a 4-dimensional world, whereas we're from a 3-dimensional world? Or are they something biblical? Are they a group of fallen angels that fell from paradise when they did not agree or follow the orders of God? They could be all of these things or something entirely different, because they share attributes with every single one of these claims on what they could be. What is for sure, however, is these beings do not seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. The sightings of these beings are even progressing in the numbers, and we cannot ignore the dreadful, sickening, and feeling of darkness that people get when they encounter the dreaded shadow people. I want to thank everybody for watching the episode today. And if you liked what you saw, please don't forget to hit that big red subscribe button below. You'll get a notification for future videos. Also, if you did like it, please don't forget to hit that like or share button or comment on this video, because that makes sure that it reaches people more. And because, you know, a lot of work goes into these episodes, not just from me, but from my cast, crew, and everybody else involved in the project. Also, if you have any stories that you just can't explain, or an experience that you don't know what happened and you think it's of paranormal nature, please do not hesitate or feel ashamed or embarrassed to share that story with me. You can either comment on the video below, or you can find me on Facebook or Twitter and message me on there your stories. And who knows, it might be a future episode on the show. Also, mentioning Facebook and Twitter, links to those two pages are below, so don't forget to go and visit those pages and hit the like and the follow button for pictures from the filming and albums of what we're talking about and things like that. Also, I would like to remind everybody that this is the 11th episode of Season 1, and we only have one more episode left until Season 1 is complete. And then after that, I'm going to take a brief break to get everything planned for Season 2, because a lot of cool things are coming for Season 2. It's going to be a lot different than Season 1. And also, this season finale, Stories of Lore, is not by any means going out on a whisper. We are going out with a bang. So please tell all your friends to crowd around the computer screen, or however you choose to watch the show, and tune in for the season finale, because it's going to be a great one. And I'll see you next time. Also, one of my good friends named Elliot, he has a channel on YouTube that he calls Escafy, where he has countdown videos of some awesome things. He's done everything from scary stories to top freak shows to haunted locations and secret undergrounds. So please go and give this guy a look. Don't forget to subscribe to his channel, because he's got some awesome stuff.